Hello and welcome to TEQ. Today, the title of our conversation is Wired for Change Cisco Empowers Covenant House Youth. I'm really excited about this because timing couldn't be more perfect. This week, Cisco will release the 2024 Purpose Report, making 40 years of really making connections from a tech side and, trying to be funny with the wired and the networking reference there. But more importantly, making a difference in the community where Cisco operates and really that connecting people and helping people thrive is being part of Cisco's DNA since the very beginning, whether it's about digital divide and closing that through training with the Networking Academy or supporting organizations like Covenant House. And today, that's this part that I want to explore with a guest that I'm super excited to have. Her name is Monica Naim. She is a Cisco collaboration lead and a Covenant House board member. But more importantly, she experienced firsthand what it's like to go through an organization like Covenant House and land an amazing job at a tech company like Cisco. So please help me welcome Monica to our conversation. Hi, Monica. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
I am excited, and you and I chatted in the past, and we met in person, although very briefly, in September at the Global Citizens Festival, where you were amazingly on stage. Because I don't know how you had the strength to talk about your personal experience at a huge crowd who cheered you on because of how um, vulnerable you always are sharing your story, but also as you were talking about the experience with Cisco and the relationship between Cisco and Covenant House. And maybe our audience is not so familiar with the organization, so I would ask you, if you don't mind, to start from there. Start telling us more about what Covenant House does.
Yeah, absolutely. Covenant House is an amazing organization. They actually help support youth that are unhoused or maybe youth that have been victims of sexual trafficking. It's 24/7. They have wonderful street outreach programs where they actually pull them in and they give them a safe place to not only sleep for the night, but they feed them. They try to give them skills to rehabilitate them back into their environments. And it's really beautiful. A lot of the youth that are coming in right now have, severe mental health challenges just because of the pandemic and everything that we've been going through. And we have doctors that'll come on site and actually work with them and help them process trauma and really to help them be the best versions. And then we even have like job skill training where they'll come in and say, okay, this is what you want to do. And we'll connect them with other people in the community. And so it's really about not only giving them, a place to be and to be safe, but also rehabilitate them and actually help them get back on their feet.
Yeah, and I've been following the efforts for a few years now. I actually started donated 3 Christmases ago, but I'll get into that story in a minute. I am particularly um, I don't know. There's something about young people, maybe, and I don't want to get emotional. We just started, maybe because I have a teenager and thinking what is like, to be alone in the world that we live in. To your point, I was in New York just last week, and temperature of 22, and people sleeping on the pavement, and it is, is real and is here and is across the US. So it's not something that happens, we always think about third world country and whatnot. No, it's real and is still happening in 2024. How did you come across, share our path, from Covenant House literally to a leadership role at Cisco?
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting. All of my worlds kind of collided at Cisco. So unfortunately, my mother was a drug addict and my dad was severely abusive as I was growing up. And that put me in a situation where I was in the foster system, and that itself is incredibly broken. And eventually I found myself in a juvenile holding facility, and then I got put into a group home, and then they sent me back to live with my mom, and she just didn't come home. And also, she ended up kicking me out when I was 16, and so I had no place to turn. And it's really, organizations like Covenant House just really helped lift me up, and I wouldn't be here without them, right? And so when I got to Cisco by some miracle, by the way, Cisco's incredibly involved with the organization, and it's really beautiful. They've been doing the sleep out for many years now. And it started as something that was really, really small with 12 people in New York City to this beautiful thing where we've now raised over north of $130 million. And so I was actually looped in by Brian Ruger, who is no longer with Cisco, but was incredible. He actually used to be the captain for the Philadelphia chapter and was like, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually something that I'm so passionate about because I've lived this, right? I want to be able to, I'm in a place now where I feel safe and I want to be able to give back." And it took me a long time. I mean, I'm 34. It took me a long time to get here, right? But it's really fascinating. I mean, Cisco shows up for people, but just to have something where I can actually leverage my this awful experience, this beautiful tragedy to create something really amazing out of it at the end of it.
And do I understand correctly? You mentioned the sleep out nights. Cisco is not just throwing money, right? There's different ways that Cisco is involved with the organization. Can you talk us through that and see, how people maybe can learn
Yeah.
from the best way of doing the work that Cisco does?
Absolutely. We volunteer. So our employees have time to give each year where we can actually go and volunteer for any organizations that we want. But we show up, we volunteer, we do leverage our networking academy and to try to get youth trained and give them soft skills. So that's some of the job training I mentioned. We do throw money at it, but because that's the most important, but it's our
Yeah,
employees, right, that show up and raise this money and raise these dollars. So that way we can help Covenant House, run and continue to run for these youth. But it's a lot of just people showing up and putting in the work and doing the work. Like I said, myself, I sit on the board. There are actually a lot of Cisco employees that sit on the board across the United States and really do a lot for this organization. And I mean, we get our customers involved, right? Which is really beautiful. I have a customer that most recently actually donated over 100 laptops to Covenant House Philadelphia. And so this is far past just us. We really bring everybody into our ecosystem and really just make sure that they feel the love.
that's awesome. Um, you mentioned some of it earlier, but I want to help people understand the extent of the impact that unhoused people, especially youth, are facing. Because I think the immediate thing when you see people is thinking about sleeping outside and the weather and lack of food and personal safety, which are all amazingly important things to notice. But there's a lot more that we don't notice. And you openly talk about the fact that you had to kind of live part of your life with people telling you that you would never amount to anything because of the experience that you've been through. So I'm sure that from an emotional perspective and mental perspective, that's such a burden to carry.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. Now I'm gonna get emotional.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
no, it's okay. I think it's something now where you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I lived that life. Right. And because I have this beautiful life now and I feel so safe and I work for an amazing company, but I never thought I'd be here. Like that's the reality of this. I thought that I would be a nobody. I mean, I was told that I should have been barefoot and pregnant by the time I was 17 because of the life that I lived. Right. And so I think people don't realize I was also judged a lot because I didn't look homeless enough. So some people didn't want to help me. Right. And that's something that's really sad. It's, you have to, I think people think homelessness is, you have to look at the type of way. You have to
Yeah,
be disgruntled. You have to be dirty. You have to be, have no sense of pride, right? Like you have to be absolutely broken in order to get help. And that's this what the bow we put around it as a society, and that's disturbing.
it
And
is.
so it's I think people don't realize, like to your point, I was in New York City too, and like seeing these people and like on the streets, like it absolutely shatters my heart into pieces because it's 22 degrees, it's 19 at night, it's a wind chill of,
Yeah,
13, and you're just sitting there and you're like, how do you survive in that? You can't. And so, I mean, and a lot of the time as a youth, you're just trying to do your best to fit in. And like that's what people I don't think really understand. Like you might not look homeless enough because you're trying to do your best to fit in, you're trying to do your best to survive, you're trying to have friends, you're trying to just be a normal kid the best that you can and survive through this stuff. And so I think it's living that life. And I'm really trying to bring a perspective to people that they have to understand that if somebody looks like they need help, just ask them if they need help, right? Like, and not look from like an appearance perspective, but if you see that they're maybe struggling or that they maybe aren't eating or they're maybe like just small little things really change people's perspective and day. Um, because that was the biggest thing I think I experienced personally is there were people to be like, oh, well, no, you're not, like, and turn me away. And like, that's the saddest thing ever.
Yeah. And I always have this picture in my mind. I was in San Francisco, or in the Valley before I moved to Atlanta in 2021, and homelessness, obviously, or the number of unhoused people in San Francisco is extremely high. And I always remember walking down Market Street one morning and seeing this young man, um, clearly living on the street, um, doing his best to put on a white shirt and a tie,
Exactly.
because I'm assuming he was trying to get a job, right? So to your point about fitting in the way that you look and the amount of pride that people have, and that stuck in my mind because I'm sure if I didn't see him doing it
Mhm.
where his tent was, and I would have I would have seen him, I don't know, 3 blocks down the line, he would have looked like anybody else
Exactly.
walking, you know, doing their business in the morning. So yeah, I think as a society we often judge, and we have so many biases that we live our life with, as what we think an unhoused person should look like. And I'm sure that in your case, you're kind of cheerleader America, right? You're blonde and pretty and white, and
Blonde hair,
yeah,
green eye, like we can do
yeah.
no wrong. Yeah.
uh,
No, 100%. And like that's to my point. Like it's really bizarre what I think, growing up and watching movies and people are like, "Oh, that's homelessness." And what's really fascinating is like I said, I joined Cisco and I didn't really share about my background until after my mom had passed away. She died from a drug overdose, and that was the first time in my life where I was like, "Oh my god!" Like it destroyed me. We're in the middle of Q4, it's chaos, and everyone came around me and they lifted me up and they supported me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" This is the first time I felt like I had a family, and that what to me was like, okay. And so I felt comfortable to share a little bit more about these really dark areas of my life, and you have beautiful responses. I mean, like people at Cisco are just so kind and so generous and just some of the best people. But I remembered once I started sharing more publicly, I had somebody look at me and they're like, "Oh, I'm looking at you and I've had no idea you went through that." And I'm
that
like,
is the
"That's the
point.
point."
Yes. And actually, I wanted to ask you about this because working with Cisco and covering their purpose report and their numbers, and how many times Cisco has been elected best company to work uh, at in America and other countries too. It all feels very marketing, right? Is talking about culture and family, but you just proved to me that there's more to it. That is actually, it is a culture. The people working there feel connected.
You do. I can actually give you something more recent. My There are moments you never think you're going to have to live through at Cisco or like any job or any in your lifetime in general. And uh, I obviously shared about my mom, but most recently, my dad and my sister also passed away. And I had my business partner, Doug Hoffman, who's absolutely incredible. My boss, Mike Testa, Mike Tryon, Patrick Morrissey, G2. I mean, everybody was so incredibly amazing, and they all came together and they supported me in the ways that I didn't even know I needed to be supported in, because you
Yeah.
don't know how to ask for help in those situations. And we were finally able to have their services, and I had 40 people fly in for these services all from across Cisco. And so I know it's really easy for people to look at and be like, "Oh yeah, number one place to work," or like best culture. And it's real. Like I can't stress to you how real it is. I know I can pick up the phone and call. Some of these people are some of my best friends now. right? I've been at this company 10 years, and the friendships I've built are going to far exceed out of anything. I mean, I'm hoping I retire here, right? But it's gonna, I'm like, they're gonna, go way past that. And these people show up. I can make a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning and I say, I need help. I'm in trouble. Like, and I know somebody's going to answer and they're going to be there for me. And that's something that you can work at a lot of places and you can make a lot of money and you can do all those things. But like, that is what keeps me here. It's our people. At the end of the day, they are some of the best humans I've ever been with.
I love that you talk about this because I think we've been through COVID talking about people and the importance of creating a culture where people matter because we were all in need, right? We were all in the same boat and we were trying to survive that. But what you're bringing is actually that testimony of how important creating a culture at work that does not put people out to compete for a bell curve for promotion, but actually encourages connection, real connection, and camaraderie. It is so important, and it it shows up in different way. And I do feel that it matters more to the younger generation than my generation. We were not brought up like that, right? Work was work, and that was it.
Yeah.
But creating a place that is really more than work, for one, is going to get people to stay longer, to your point, loyalty
Yes.
to the brand, and really coming together, because then it's not just the brand that matters to you, but it's the people that we view represent that brand. So
Exactly.
I'm a big advocate for creating that opportunity. um, I'm curious, though, as we focus on the philanthropy side of work, um, if there's any, you've seen this as a recipient, but then as a board member, you continue to work with Covenant House. And I'm curious if there are learnings and any advice that you want to give brands and organizations that are trying to show up in a good way. And sometimes I think especially large organizations think that they know it all. And so sometimes it doesn't actually turn out the way that you were hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's really interesting, especially sitting on the board at Covenant House, like you hear all of these companies and like all these ideas that they have and they're amazing, but nobody knows how to get started. And so I would say like just start small. Like even if it's, I always try to tell people like even if you do like a $5 donation or you do a $25 raffle or you do like you're at least starting, because I think everyone gets so stuck in we want to be the Cisco, we want to do $130 million, we want to do all this stuff, and like that's the grand goal. And but everyone gets so wrapped around that they never actually like get the plan through. And so we have this initiative right now where we're in Covenant House, Pennsylvania. We're trying to get people to come in and adopt a space, like companies, and it's just to refresh some of the like living areas for some of the youth. And so they can have like a nice TV, a nice like couch that's not absolutely destroyed, paint a wall, like it really just get involved in a small way, and then it kind of snowballs. And so it's just starting. I think like that's the biggest thing. And I would say even as like somebody who's went through this, I wouldn't be where I am if somebody didn't just start and help me or just reach out. And so I think the other thing too is if you can find a youth that you really like gravitate towards, like take them on as like, a mentee, like talk to them, check in with them, very similar to big brothers, big sisters, right? Like just check in with them, see how they're doing, because those are connections that they're not used to. They're not used to people caring about them. Right. They're used to people coming in, doing a drive by and saying, okay, cool, I'm going to help for this day, this day, this day. And like, that's it. And they never see him again. And it's really about, to your point, creating personal connections, because that's what's really going to help people foster and grow. And like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have some of this.
You making me look up if there's an Atlanta chapter, because I there you
There
go.
is one in
So
Georgia.
I might just go and do that. But thank you. I really appreciate your time, and as always, sharing your story in such a true and vulnerable way. And it struck me what you said earlier about how for a long time you haven't shared your story. Um, whew, and I know why. understand why, but I'm so grateful that you are. Um,
Yeah.
Hopefully, this is going to show people that they will amount to something, whatever that might be. Oh my God!
Yeah.
So thank you. I really, really, really appreciate you. I also want people
No, thank you.
to
This is
continue
a
to
privilege.
talk to you and find out more. So I always encouraging my guests to
Yeah.
share. Is it LinkedIn? Is it other social? Where can people find you? Not in a stalky
Yeah.
way.
I'm all over. So LinkedIn, you can just search me, Monica Naim. But also, I'm on Instagram too. That's probably the only social platform I ever update. So I'm there on Mo Naim 5125. I will say you will see all aspects of my life, good, bad, crazy, and different, and the dog doing stuff he's not supposed to do.
Yes, you have a lovely
So
dog. I met him before. So
thank you.
thank you again. And I people that follow me know that for the past couple of years, I have taken the money that I would have normally spent sending Christmas cards and season greetings all over the world and diverted that funding to a charity. And it's always been a little bit different. And this year, I will be donating $500 to Covenant House. And I will put, you'll see it pop up, the link for you to go and donate. If you, just like Monica said, even if it's just $5, $2, whatever it is that you can spare is going to make a difference to somebody's life. And so please, if you can, go and do that. I also want to thank our audience for whether they follow me all along this year or they just joined me today and joined Monica with me today. Thank you. Thank you for supporting TEQ and for showing up for me. I wish you and your families a peaceful holiday season, and I will see you all in 2025 with more Heart Attack conversations where we put technology and society closer together. Thank you so much and happy holidays.